When ideals eclipse the realities of hard-nosed pragmatism, who truly bears the brunt? Applauding grand visions and big ideas is easy, until the bill lands on your own kitchen table and the cost is counted out in your own currency. What really happens when political dogma seeps off the podium and into the daily routines of life, turning once cherished values into hard, tangible losses for ordinary families? To answer this, let us look at a real-world example: Finland, a nation that, for decades, was held up as a model of sensible prosperity and calm, pragmatic decision-making. For generations, Finland managed to balance its ideals with the practicalities of geography, trade, and neighborly relations. But in the wake of the crisis in Ukraine, everything changed. When Finland decided to close its border with Russia, the economic aftershocks were immediate and powerful. Picture it. Airports that once buzzed with the chatter of travelers now stand eerily deserted. The parking lots where families from St. Petersburg would park their cars for a weekend getaway are now empty. Restaurants that once served Russian tourists fresh salmon and cloudberry desserts flicker out, one by one. Hotels and spa resorts, especially in Lapland, close their doors, their halls echoing with silence, and unemployment edges ever closer to that dreaded double-digit mark. But Finland's story is not unique. Across the continent, similar tales unfold. In Ukraine, with each passing day, winter draws closer, and the specter of financial ruin grows heavier. Leaders in Kyiv, facing empty coffers, debate the once unthinkable, seizing more than 140 billion euros in frozen Russian assets, a move fraught with legal and ethical landmines. All the while, everyday Ukrainians are forced to trade comfort and security for a fragile promise of survival, rationing heat, enduring blackouts, and hoping for relief that never quite arrives. The United States, meanwhile, acts from afar, imposing sanctions, shifting alliances, and redrawing boundaries on the global chessboard. The official rhetoric is about defending values and shaping a better tomorrow, but the real price is paid by local communities around the world. The true expense is measured not in sound bites, but in empty shops, lost livelihoods, shuttered schools, and broken trust. If we ignore these warning signs, our own stability, savings, and future may be the next to land on the chopping block, sacrificed for the strategies and ambitions of those insulated from the fallout. How did Finland, a nation with a proud tradition of pragmatic, hard-won prosperity, arrive at this precipice? The unraveling began with a single, fateful decision, made in the name of principle, but with consequences that few truly anticipated. Can a country afford to sever its most vital economic lifelines in the pursuit of principle? For Finland, this is no longer a theoretical question. It is an urgent, daily reality that shapes every corner of society. When Helsinki shut its border to Russian tourists, the move was celebrated across the European Union as a moral stance. Speeches were made, flags waved, and values were loudly declared. Yet for the thousands of people living along the border and deep within Finland, principle now extracts a growing price, measured in lost livelihoods and increasingly uncertain futures. For more than 3 decades, cross-border commerce and Russian tourism were the beating heart of local economies. Small family shops in border towns, vast spa resorts in the north, and lively airports all thrived on the steady stream of visitors from the east. The border closure, however, set off a domino effect of hardship. Businesses that once bustled with Russian customers saw their revenues disappear almost overnight. Shopkeepers, hotel managers, and restaurant owners scrambled to adapt, but many found there was simply no replacement for their largest customer base. The epicenter of this crisis is Lapinranta Airport, a symbol of both Finland's openness and its recent struggles. Once a busy portal for travelers from St. Petersburg and the wider Russian northwest, its concourses now echo with emptiness. Where crowds once jostled to board flights, where families awaited loved ones at arrivals, today there is only a single lingering route, to Bergamo in Italy. The European Union invested more than 12 million euros over more than 10 years to keep this airport alive, viewing it as a strategic link and economic engine. Now, without Russian passengers, it teeters on the brink of abandonment, a costly shell haunted by memories of better days. The pain does not stop at the airport doors. Across Finland, restaurants, cafes, and spas, especially those in Lapland, the land of Santa Claus, have been forced to close. Iconic places such as the Tapio restaurant in Lapland and cherished dining rooms in Helsinki, like the Room and Villa Angelica, have vanished, their doors locked and windows dark. In the south, spa resorts near the Russian border, once brimming with families, now stand deserted and drowning in debt. Their collapse ripples outward, striking not just business owners, but also cooks, cleaners, servers, electricians, and taxi drivers, people whose futures depend on open doors and full tables. To put it in perspective, the number of bankruptcies among Finnish restaurants and cafes has soared by more than 80%, a staggering figure that signals not just a downturn, but an existential crisis for the entire hospitality sector. In Lapland, even the legendary Tapio restaurant could not withstand the absence of guests. In Helsinki, the closure of renowned establishments like the Room and Villa Angelica sent shockwaves through the culinary scene, once a source of national pride. Unemployment in Finland now hovers near 10%, a grim echo of the global financial crisis of 2008. But this time, optimism is in short supply. Back in 2008, hope for a rebound was a lifeline. There was a sense that with time, things would improve. Now, political gridlock and indecision offer no such comfort. The government debates and delays, while business owners plead for relief, support, deregulation, anything to halt the slide. Many now openly wonder, was sacrificing these economic bridges ever truly worth it? As the stalemate drags on, the danger grows. Towns and regions built on cross-border trade face not just lost jobs, but the prospect of irreversible decline. This is not simply about numbers and debts. It is about entire communities unraveling, their destinies reshaped by distant decisions made in Brussels or Helsinki. This is not the first time a nation has faced such a reckoning. History is filled with examples of countries making sweeping decisions in the name of principle, only to pay a steep price. Consider the United Kingdom's experience with Brexit. The desire to assert sovereignty and reclaim control was powerful, but the economic consequences, disrupted trade, labor shortages, and a shrinking economy, have rippled through British society, affecting everyone from farmers to factory workers. But Finland is only the first domino to fall in this latest round of economic upheaval. Across Europe and beyond, the same collision of principle and pragmatism is pushing other nations toward their own painful reckonings. What if hardship is not merely a side effect of war, but a weapon in itself, a lever pulled by those in power to achieve their aims? For millions across Ukraine, this chilling prospect is already reality. As another merciless winter approaches, the nation teeters on a financial precipice. Ukraine's currency reserves could be depleted by the spring of 2026 unless drastic measures are taken. Desperation is spreading through western corridors of power. Leaders debate whether over 140 billion euros in frozen Russian assets could be seized and funneled to Kyiv. Legal and ethical landmines abound, with experts warning of repercussions that could destabilize global finance for years. Yet each week, as Ukraine's war chest empties, the pressure to act intensifies. This is not without precedent. During the Second World War, nations seized assets from enemy countries, leading to decades of legal wrangling and international tension. In the modern era, the seizure of Iranian assets by the United States led to retaliatory actions and a breakdown of negotiations. These historical examples show the risks of using economic warfare as a policy tool. Closer to home, quieter rumors swirl, more unsettling because they come from within Ukraine itself. Leaked accounts hint that Ukrainian officials may intentionally ration heating in select regions. The stated reason is austerity. Privately, some suggest it is a calculated effort. Reinforce the story of perpetual siege, whatever the actual fuel supply. The suffering in this narrative becomes both proof of resilience and a call for sympathy abroad. Government messaging and media coverage amplify a single, harrowing image. Civilians, bundled and shivering, holding out against a weaponized winter imposed by an unrelenting foe. But what is often omitted is Ukraine's own campaign of cross-border strikes, targeting Russian cities. By keeping the spotlight fixed on Ukrainian hardship, leaders aim to galvanize unity at home and support overseas, while sidestepping uncomfortable questions about escalation and accountability. Meanwhile, mismanagement festers beneath the surface. Essential generators, donated to keep hospitals and vital systems running, frequently gather dust in warehouses. Old, overloaded power grids are patched together just enough to function, but another wave of attacks could plunge entire cities into darkness. Instead of open planning or honest warnings, authorities appear to double down on psychological tactics, deploying fear as policy. The message is blunt. Endurance is a patriotic duty, and dissent is suspect. Here, suffering itself becomes transactional, offered abroad in exchange for aid, and wielded at home to demand obedience. This strategy, left unchecked, threatens to corrode public trust and fracture society. It saps morale, deepens divisions, and leaves millions exposed, not only to the elements, but to a reality shaped as much by narrative manipulation as by war. Ultimately, Ukraine's fate, and the lives of its citizens, may be determined far beyond its borders. In Washington's halls of power, the next moves on the geopolitical chessboard are being weighed, with consequences that will ripple across continents. Yet as American strategists debate their options, another reality emerges. The costs of ideology often boomerang back, reshaping economies and alliances far from the battlefield. Whose war is it when the rules change in distant, unreachable capitals? Ukrainian leaders now plead for long-range American missiles, hoping for a battlefield breakthrough. But in an instant, the center of gravity shifts. A cryptic call between Moscow and Washington, and suddenly Donald Trump hints that firepower may soon yield to negotiation. Inside the White House, the stakes sharpen, escalate, and risk a direct clash with Russia, a collision that could spiral far beyond Ukraine. Or chase a fragile ceasefire, one that might demand Ukraine surrender territory once deemed untouchable, turning yesterday's promises into today's bargaining chips. Rumors swirl of a secret summit in Budapest. Whispers suggest that European leaders, perhaps even Kyiv itself, could be excluded, as American and Russian envoys redraw borders behind closed doors. Western journalists, who once insisted Ukraine's borders were sacred, now float the idea of territorial compromises. The narrative shifts, and with it, the hopes of millions who depended on yesterday's certainties. For Donald Trump, the motive is not peace for its own sake, but a legacy-sealing deal that puts America first. In this calculus, Ukrainian agency shrinks, becoming collateral in a contest between giants. Suddenly, Ukraine's president, once the symbol of Western unity, risks becoming a bystander to his own country's fate. The decisions that count may soon be made in rooms he cannot enter, by people who will never pay the price. For small nations everywhere, that is the ultimate danger. Not just losing land, but losing agency, dignity, and the right to shape their own future. When high-minded ideals meet cold pragmatism, the true cost is measured in broken lives and shattered trust, not just redrawn maps. And for those watching from afar, wondering if their own security or prosperity could be sacrificed by the stroke of a distant pen, the warning is painfully clear. But when ideology trumps economic sense, the fallout does not stop at borders. The consequences ripple outward, turning abstract deals into tangible losses for ordinary people everywhere. So how do you, as an individual, safeguard your future when political theater takes center stage? In a world obsessed with ideology and slogans, your savings, your job, and the stability of your community can become pawns in games played far above your head. Economic pragmatism is more than a catchphrase. It is a lifeline. Whenever leaders chase applause with sweeping gestures, it is often everyday people who foot the bill. Grandstanding may win headlines, but it rarely pays rent. To avoid being blindsided, Insist on transparency. Never take official narratives at face value. Examine every foreign policy pivot, every closed border, every new agreement, not just for what they promise, but for what they truly cost. When Finland's airports go quiet, or Helsinki's restaurants shutter, those empty spaces are not just numbers. They are warnings to all of us. History offers sobering parallels. In the 1970s, Britain's decision to join the European Economic Community was hailed as a new dawn, yet it led to decades of debate, uncertainty, and eventually, Brexit. In the 1990s, Yugoslavia's leaders put ideology above economic cooperation, leading to a devastating conflict and the breakup of a once prosperous federation. This is why building local resilience is essential. Diversify your business. If you own a shop, do not rely on a single customer segment. Seek out new markets, even if it means going digital or partnering with neighbors. Strengthen community ties. Support local initiatives. Join neighborhood associations, and create networks that can provide mutual aid when times get tough. Support policies that are grounded in reality, not just lofty speeches from distant capitals. When economic lifelines are severed in the name of principle, only the nimble and prepared endure. Stay alert for the patterns. If fear is being stoked again and again, ask who is gaining. Fear is a powerful tool for masking incompetence or avoiding accountability. It can distract voters and shield decision-makers from tough questions. Consider concrete steps. If your livelihood depends on cross-border trade, lobby for consultation before major decisions are made. If you work in hospitality, restaurant, or tourism, push for government support and retraining programs. Learn new skills, explore remote work, or consider part-time ventures to hedge against sudden shocks. More than anything, demand accountability. Whether choices are made in Helsinki, Kyiv, or Washington, they must serve those who will live with the fallout. Never let remote power struggles dictate your prosperity or freedom. Complacency is not neutral. It is an open door for others to gamble with your future. As the world watches borders harden, economies stumble, and new deals unfold, remember, if you do not defend your interests, no one else will. Ideological overreach is not just a headline. It is a force that can upend lives from Lapland to Lviv. The next step is to recognize the warning signs before they become irreversible losses. When the next boomerang is launched, will you recognize it in time? Or will it strike your job, your city, your savings, before you even trace the hand that set it spinning? This is not a thought experiment. Each time political doctrine eclipses economic sense, someone pays the price. Too often, it is neither the lawmakers, nor the high officials, nor the headline writers. It is ordinary people who bear the cost. Consider Finland. For generations, its border towns prospered on practical cross-border trade. Then came sweeping edicts, sanctions, shuttered checkpoints, and lofty declarations about values. The aftermath? Not progress, but a storm of closed restaurants, silent airports, and families left adrift without work or hope. Now look at Ukraine. The world haggles over billions in frozen assets and the morality of making citizens shoulder the burdens of war. On the ground, Ukrainians steel themselves for winters with less heat, as leaders cut corners to fill budget gaps. The ideals on paper remain undimmed. Yet it is the weakest who freeze and struggle. And then there is America. Here, every debate about escalation or negotiation shapes not just borders, but livelihoods continents away. The rhetoric soars, the stakes are vast. But when the chess pieces shift, who absorbs the shockwave? Who shoulders the losses if the grand gambit fails? Here is the difficult truth. Choices made in far-off capitals, by those who have never walked your street or entered your shop, can erase years of labor, reputation, and prosperity. If we do not learn from these cycles, the next tremor may strike even closer to home. You could lose more than money or time. You could lose the agency to shape your own tomorrow. What practical steps can you take? First, break the trance of soothing narratives. Refuse to treat crisis as mere background noise. Demand transparency, Demand competence. Demand that those who wield power also share the risks, not only the rest of us. Second, get involved locally. Attend town hall meetings, join civic organizations, and participate in community planning. The more engaged you are, the harder it is for remote decisions to blindside your community. Third, build your own financial resilience. Set aside emergency savings where possible. Invest in skills that are transferable across industries. If you run a business, explore how to pivot quickly, perhaps by offering delivery, online services, or new products. Fourth, support media that question official narratives and present multiple viewpoints. A well-informed populace is a powerful check on overreach. Share stories of those affected by distant decisions. Give a human face to what might otherwise be dismissed as statistics. Fifth, build coalitions across borders. Reach out to counterparts in neighboring countries. There is strength in solidarity. If Finnish business owners had coordinated more closely with their Russian counterparts, perhaps a compromise solution could have been found. A phased reopening, special permits, or at least a shared voice in negotiations. Sixth, foster a culture of accountability. Demand that politicians and policymakers explain the real-world impacts of their decisions, not just the ideals. If a border closure is proposed, ask for a cost-benefit analysis. If sanctions are debated, insist on clear metrics for success and sunset clauses. Seventh, teach the next generation the value of critical thinking and adaptability. Equip children and young adults with the tools to question, to innovate, and to weather uncertainty. History shows that societies which prioritize education and resilience recover faster and prosper longer. If we fail to do these things, we will be blindsided, again and again, paying dearly for someone else's storyline. The cost is real, and it will be ours, unless we decide to chart a different path. As the world braces for the next cycle of upheaval, let us look past the headlines and ask, who gains, who loses, and who stands next in line to pay? In the end, the choice is ours. We can be spectators, waiting for the next boomerang to strike. Or we can become actors, shaping our own destinies, demanding a say, and refusing to let distant ambitions steal our future. The warning is clear. Let us heed it before the cost becomes too high to bear.